Welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. I'm Bob Delaney, Executive Director of the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. Labor Vision, a production of the Institute, focuses on topics of importance to working Rhode Islanders. We hope you enjoy this edition.
Hello and welcome to Labor Vision. You're watching the at-home edition. It's a production of the Institute for Labor Studies and Research, and I am your host, Erica Hammond. And joined with me today from the Teamsters Local 251 is Principal Officer Matt Taibi and Organizer Mike Simone. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And welcome back. I feel like sometimes we get to see you guys more often, but we haven't seen you since we've been doing the at-home edition, so I'm excited to have you guys on. All right, I know that not super recently, but since you guys have been on, you've had two major organizing election wins. Can you guys talk a little bit about that, the win with the Johnson Brothers and Stericycle?
You want to start, Matt? Or you want me to?
Yeah, overview, basically, Johnson Brothers is a beverage distributor in Rhode Island and Quonset. They do wine and distilled spirits. That's about 13 workers, drivers, and warehouse. And we represent a lot of other folks in the industry in the state. And then Stericycle is a transportation company. They handle and process medical waste. That was about 35 drivers. They're in Woonsocket. And there's a long history of organizing attempts of the Stericycle affiliates in Rhode Island, but I can go into some specifics on those organizing drives.
Right. So the Johnson Brothers organizing drive actually started. I got contacted by one of the drivers there, Alex. I met with him for the first time probably in May of 2020, and their major concerns were, during the pandemic, they didn't think they were being provided the proper PPE. They were also underpaid compared to our unionized beer and liquor and beverage employees, and the company had just switched from a five-day schedule to a 4-day schedule, which was very unpopular with the drivers. Those are the main reasons they came to us, and we started the organizing drive. There were unfair labor practice charges filed by our local against the company. The company had had captive audience meetings with the employees. They made illegal promises. There were also some other issues. I won't say threats, but they did tell one employee that he could lose his retirement if he voted for the union, which is illegal. So as a matter of fact, I just found out this past week that the NLRB will be issuing complaints based on the illegal promises the company made during the organizing drive. So that election was held on September 14th, 2020, and the vote was 7-4 in favor of our union, Teamsters Local 251.
Great. And then how about the Stericycle? Was that also a kind of a messy fight or a contentious fight, like it seemed like the company put up with for the Johnson Brothers?
Yeah, so it's actually similar because they also were concerned about not having a COVID protocol, not being provided the proper PPE. There were some other issues. Pay was another issue there. Health benefits. They were looking to improve their health benefit plan. That company did put on a very, I should say, they used a union buster. Basically, he was an in-house union buster. They had captive audience meetings there also. There were also unfair labor practice charges filed against Stericycle in that campaign. It was pretty contentious. We had, a couple of drivers speak up at meetings, which was good. I provided them with a lot of research that I had done on the company. And what helped us too is we have unionized facilities in other states. So out in Pennsylvania, the Teamster local out there helped us tremendously. They sent us copies of their contract and actually gave me some heads up on the union buster that we were dealing with, who turns out will be negotiating the contract. Yeah, and Matt can talk about actually what we did with the ULPs there, which was pretty unique. The board was going to issue complaints against the company, but they reached out to Matt and they wanted us to withdraw the complaints, and we did get something in return, and I can let Matt speak about that.
Yeah, so one tactic that is usually very helpful, because organizing doesn't stop, I mean, ever, but organizing doesn't stop when you've won the election, because you still have to get a contract, and then organizing still continues after that, because you still need to build the power of the union on a day-to-day basis. But that's switching from external to internal. But what ended up happening was there were some really, those were good unfair labor practice charges, and the election was done. We won. It was a 2-to-1 vote, ratio. So it was very decisive in our favor. The company reached out, and we like to have interim agreements until you reach a ratified contract. We have an interim agreement which provides for union access and a way to handle grievances. So, and that part was really good, actually, where workers have right to representation, and just cause and discipline, and a grievance procedure, and binding arbitration. So they agreed to this interim agreement, which is helpful. And we've already gone up there to access the facility, to hand out the agreement, to hand out Weingarten rights cards, rights that workers have, or a union representation. So, that's helpful, in this process. And another thing to add, what Mike was saying about other unionized facilities, is that it's part of the solid waste division for the Teamsters, and the director there has been reaching out to a bunch of the different locals. There were a number of leaflets that had had members, quotes from members and pictures at other locals, at other unionized facilities, basically encouraging the workers, in Woonsocket to vote union yes, because of the improvements that Teamsters have made in those locations. So, it's something where we're working together, to benefit the workers here, and that obviously helps everyone else, in terms of bargaining future contracts and future orders.
Absolutely. Well, those are both really awesome wins or victories for the Teamsters Local 251. And I know that even further back than these victories, you guys had a contract ratification in East Providence, Barrington with Ocean State Transit, right? And
yes.
So that was back in May of 2019, right?
Organizing was May of 2019, and ratification was May of 2020.
Okay. And
Right.
So how did this ratification play into the two recent victories that you had with Scituate First Student and Durham School Services in Smithfield that just recently happened?
So yeah, I mean, the issue of organizing in the school bus industry, because of that, that campaign, and even previously the Providence school bus driver strike, is that they've been very high profile in the news, social media, etc., and people talk. People know, Rhode Island's a small state, and people do talk and see what it is that we're doing, and that led directly to organizing leads, and Mike took those leads, and we were able to we were able to have organizing drives in so Scituate, Rhode Island. They used to be Durham School Services, and then they switched over to First Student, and it's just the drivers there. And then Smithfield, Durham School Services, the drivers, monitors, and aides. So it was about 15 in the vote for Scituate and about 43 in the vote for Smithfield, and Mike can go into detail.
Yeah. So the Scituate yard was a great victory. I mean, that was unanimous, which you hardly see in a union election. It was 14-0 in favor of the Teamsters union. The issue there, Matt touched that they were a Durham yard, and then First Student won the contract. So the issue there was when First Student won the contract, they had a meeting with the employees, and they did give them a substantial raise, but they took all their bonuses away. So they had attendance bonuses, safety bonuses, longevity, all that was taken away by First Student, and that wasn't too popular with the drivers, the bus drivers in Scituate. So they reached out to us, and once again, and I got to give credit to First Student. They didn't put on an anti-union campaign, which is very unusual. Not even a letter to the employees, which is highly unusual. So, and that probably reflects the 14-0 victory. When a company doesn't campaign against the union and they're free to choose, they always choose the union. So that was a great victory, and hopefully we're going to start negotiations with them. We actually have a meeting this Sunday with the bus drivers in Scituate, and we'll be taking proposals from them, contract proposals, and also electing one or two people to the union negotiating committee. Durham School Services, on the other hand, was very different than First Student. We actually had a freedom of association agreement with Durham School Services that was negotiated by our international. So Matt and I decided to enter into that freedom of association agreement, which is basically a neutrality agreement. But the company didn't abide by their terms of the freedom of association agreement. So in that case, we ended up filing a substantial number of unfair labor practice charges against Durham School Services in Smithfield. They are being investigated right now, but I think we probably will have some complaints issued. They held captive audience meetings. They disparaged the union, had a grievance meeting with employees, tried to correct a bunch of the problems they were having, which is illegal. You can't make promises and, settle their grievances during an organizing drive. So that was those were part of the ULPs, and there were some other issues too that were happening in the yard, and we ended up filing ULPs. But overall, that election was held on November 20th, and the vote was 32-4 in favor of the union, despite the anti-union campaign, which is fantastic. And there were 6 challenge ballots that did not affect the outcome of the election. So that was a great victory also for the local, and also for the bus drivers, aides, and monitors that work in that yard in Greenville, Rhode Island.
Wow, that is a significant victory.
Yes.
All right, and so what's next for both of those victories? Now there'll be the more internal organizing, right, for contracts.
Right. Yeah. So there's a bargaining process to try to get a first contract. Yeah, definitely. In all those cases,
Right.
and given the longstanding, a little bit of a history in dealing with Stericycle, they have a wholly owned subsidiary called Scituate in Rhode Island, and there's been some organizing interest there, and Mike could talk a little bit about that.
Right. So Scituate is owned by Stericycle, and while we were out leafleting the Stericycle facility in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, we noticed that there were a few Scituate trucks that used to come into the facility. So there is some interaction with the Stericycle drivers in Woonsocket, and the Scituate facility is located in Pawtucket. So I got a call from one of the drivers who happened to be speaking with a few of the Stericycle drivers, and he he was inquiring about organizing. So I met with him and I gave him some material. We spoke about the organizing process, and he went out, I guess, the next day, and or a couple of days later, and was passing out the information to a few employees. And lo and behold, the company found out about it, and he was initially suspended and then terminated. So right now, that's we filed a ULP on his behalf, an unfair labor practice on his behalf, and right now that's being investigated. We're saying it was for union activity. Naturally, the company's saying it was for something else. There was a discipline problem, but we're sticking with the union activity. And what they did also, they also fired, they suspended a second employee who we think the company thought was part of the organizing process. They suspended him for 3 weeks. The company knew that we were fighting to get the first employee back, that we had filed charges against the company. So the manager from the Woonsocket facility reached out to him and told him to come back to work, and they decided to pay him for the 3 weeks he was suspended. So that's going to help our case with the first employee that was terminated. But I have been out there getting a great response from the drivers. I've been leafleting. They've all been stopping, taking my information. I plan to go back again with some more information. I actually had one employee come out and speak with me while I was there, and he's an ex-member of our local, and he was saying how important it was to him to get the union in there, so he offered his help. So we'll see what happens with that. You know, I'm very optimistic that we can continue with that organizing drive and hopefully get an election at the Scituate facility also.
How many workers would that be?
At that facility, at Scituate, there's around 18 drivers. Yeah.
And can we expect to see, I don't know if it's this recent, but can we expect to see any events or anything that people can look out for that, or not yet?
Not yet. Yeah, it's in the early stages, so
yeah,
you know, hopefully if it progresses, there will be.
I mean, the goal, obviously, you know, if the Scituate the organizing, you know, keeps on going and we can file and get an election and hopefully win, then that puts us in a better bargaining position when it comes to dealing with Stericycle. So, you know, and it would send a jolt during bargaining, you know, so that we represent a larger share of the workforce, you know, in the area. So, you know, that's important in terms of sending a message to the company, but also the, you know, we're in some discussions with some folks in our international and other locals of, you know, potential actions that can be taken. You know, it's the solid waste industry, and in particular, like medical waste, you know, it's pretty sensitive, very regulated industry. So therefore, you know, there's a lot of pressure points that we could hit on, and if it's multiple locals and a coordinated action, then it sends even a stronger message to the company. So those are things that, you know, we're talking about. You know, no plan as of yet, but those are definitely distinct possibilities given the nature of, you know, particularly Stericycle. Stericycle is a big company, not a lot of union density around the country. They've been acquiring a lot of companies like Scituate.
About that, on a second.
They've been acquiring a lot of companies, and they take a very aggressive approach, management-wise. In the research we've done, we've noticed that a lot of their executive levels are former UPS managers, and then they've hired, you know, additional UPS management. And you know, I have a background in UPS, know full well that UPS management's very aggressive, even though they deal with the Teamsters in UPS, but without a union, they're very difficult to deal with. So It's a challenge to deal with them, but it also shows you that the workers there are willing to fight, and where they have the confidence into forming a union. So it's a good thing.
Right. Well, I'm
Yeah,
definitely.
and just to touch on a little bit more about Shred-it, speaking with one of the long-term employees there, I guess he's been there for about 8 years, and he said when the company was owned before Stericycle bought out Shred-it, he said it was a great place to work. They wouldn't have even thought about unionizing. They were treated well. They got regular raises, had good benefits. But he said when Stericycle came in, they changed the benefit plan. They also started taking things away, vacation time, personal time. And so that was a big, that's what led basically to them coming to us. That was the big issue. They weren't happy with the way Stericycle was managing the facility. They weren't happy with the routing, and they weren't happy with the benefits that were being taken away.
And Stericycle, they're not a local company. They are
No.
a much larger company.
They're a big company. I think they're out of Illinois. I know they're a big company though.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm definitely looking forward in the coming months to hearing good news on all of these. And I'm sure we'll have you guys back on here soon, hopefully, with more good news. Right.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know that you guys are both very, very busy right now, especially with the added everything that's happening in the world, right? So thank you guys for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank
you.
All right. And I hope you guys have a great holiday if I don't see you.
You as well.
Thank you. All right. For those of you who are watching from home, you're watching Labor Vision. I'm your host, Erica Hammond, and we hope to see you back here for our next segment. Have a great night.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen on this channel 3 times each week: Tuesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., and Saturday at 5 p.m.